So how was life in the Wonder Years?
Busy. Really, really busy. This week, we announced that we were on the cover of Rock Sound. We released a new music video. Today, we are announcing like a big release spectacular where we're like taking over a town near where we grew up, where like we're showing a documentary in the movie theater. We're playing in the record store. We're taking over a vintage shop to run our own pop-up shop. We're taking over a beer garden to have an after party. And this is on top of that music video that we released yesterday. We shot last Wednesday. So we shot it and it was edited within a week and released. And then we rehearsed on Thursday, flew on Friday. Saturday, we played a festival. I mean, we did play, but our actual set got canceled for lightning. And so we played acoustic indoors for the people that stuck around. And then Sunday morning flew to Denver and played a festival in Denver Sunday, flew home yesterday, or flew home Monday. And then, yesterday or Tuesday, like I said, we did the Rock Sound cover. I had my kids all day. Yesterday we did the song release, and I was with the guys editing the documentary all day. I mean, it's fucking crazy is what it is. It's really exhausting.
Yeah, but after the last couple of years, are you relishing being busy, or are you you have to remind yourself not to complain, right?
I do like being busy. I think that the thing is like, I've never been this busy with the band while also having kids, because like I mostly have had kids during the pandemic. And so it's like, I get sort of feel bad because I'm like, I got to work on this thing. I got to go do this thing. I got to fly to this place. And like, the kids just want to play. And I'm like, I got to make sure that I'm like stopping being busy to like spend time with them.
And do they understand what you do?
Yeah, well, Wyatt does. The 3.5-year-old really does. I mean, it's his favorite thing. His favorite game to play is Wonder Years. His favorite thing to do is watch the music videos. He has a record player in his room. He puts our records on his own record player, and he has a toy guitar and actually a real mic and stand. And he comes to some of the shows. He's ridden on the bus. He's done sound check with us.
Wow.
He's done the whole thing. He really loves it. The 11-month-old, obviously, not registering for him yet.
Yeah, but soon enough. So we might be dealing with future rock stars here then, if they're really into it.
It could be, yeah. I feel like usually don't people like, well, I guess not for me at least, but I think people tend to do, or I've heard kids tend to go the opposite way of the things their parents do. So maybe he'll be like a really dope scientist.
That's okay.
Yeah, I would love that.
Yeah. Like I've exposed my kids to all kinds of genres, and we've been to plenty of shows. Actually, my eldest went to his first festival when he was just 1 year old. And I made sure that we picked, like, because it was a festival, I was like, right, we need to be careful who's going to be the first band that you see in your life. And that band was the Hold Steady. So
really good choice.
Yeah.
That's a phenomenal choice. The first band that Wyatt saw was Aaron West and the Roaring Twenties, which is my other band.
So another Wonder Years album. Like, what's different this time? Like, after all this time in your career, how do you change it up to keep it interesting for you?
I think this one was tough to make because the changing life situation of like going into the seclusion of the pandemic and like being a new parent. And also I think that like making your 6th or 7th or whatever record is much different than making your 1st or 2nd. Because it's you just have to start considering things like legacy and career and so this one had me paralyzed for a long time, where I was like, right. I don't know what to do. I don't know what to write. I don't know what to write about. I don't know if I knew I could still write a song. I didn't know if I could write a Wonder Years song. And I didn't even know what that meant when I was saying it. I was like kind of the isolation, because like Wonder Years is so feedback reliant, right? Like the crowd, the rest of my band, like all these people that are like producers that are giving us feedback, like when all that goes away and you are in the silent vacuum of your basement while your kid is napping, trying to write a song, the silence kind of becomes overwhelming, and like the lack of feedback is really difficult. We talked to the record label about it, and I was like, dude, I don't know what to do. And they were like, our A&R, the label was like, well, you could write a Wonder Years record. I was like, I don't know what that means. And he was like, yeah, you do. He's like, you have carved out a little piece of this genre that is your own. There are things that you do better than any other band. Do those fucking things. And it kind of dawned on me that, like, yes, we can play to our strengths without it being like reductive or kind of like a copy of a copy of a copy that like loses like focus and precision every time. Like, we could just go write the best Wonder Years record. And like, so that kind of became my goal and focus, was like, let me just think about what I think we are the fucking best at. And like, let's go make something that, like, you know, I guess there are two goals. It was like, I wanted to love it and I wanted our fans to love it. Everything after that, if it gets good reviews, great. If people outside of our fan base like it and our fan base grows, great. If it gets played on whatever fucking radio, Spotify, playlists, whatever, great. But really, I don't give a fuck. What I care about is that I love it, and I do, and that our fans love it. And so far, it really feels like they do. I say this a lot. I think there's a false dichotomy that exists with artists where, for whatever reason, especially in rock music, have been told, you can make something your fans will like, but it will be artistically unfulfilling. Or you can make something you will like and it will be commercially a flop and your fans will hate it. And I just like refuse to accept that dichotomy, because I think that implication of that is almost that you don't respect your fans' tastes. And like, I really respect our fans. I think that they are smart and thoughtful and empathetic and kind and cool as shit. And so I think it's not that hard to make a record that I love, that they love.
When this person says, make a Wonder Years record, and you say you don't really know what that is, at what point did you kind of change your mind about that and work out?
Well, it was just later in that conversation when he started being like, there are things that you do that no one else in this genre does. Do them. And like, I don't want to give, I'm not going to give away the sauce, man. I'm not going to tell everybody, I'm not going to give you the blueprint, but I think you can read the reviews and read the articles and see what they're, and also it's hard because, you know, if you talk about it too specifically, it makes it seem very gloaty, and I don't want to be, I don't want to gloat too much. I mean, I want to say that this is the best Wonder Years record that we've ever made, the best record I've ever made, best record I've ever been a part of making. But it's, if I'm like, I am the best at this specific thing, it comes off egotistical, and I don't want to, you have to walk the line a little bit.
Yeah, so it sounds like you had a little bit of a creative block, which I think a lot of people did during the pandemic. They just didn't feel creative, and a lot of people kind of stepped away from music for a while. So when you actually got through all that, what was the first thing you wrote and it made you feel like you were onto something?
Well, okay, so the funny thing is I had written it before I knew I was onto it. So I was writing songs, but I just, like I said, without the feedback, I was kind of like overanalyzing them and overthinking it. I was like, is this good or not? And I called Mark Hoppus from Blink 182. I was like, can I play you some stuff? And can like you help me out with this chorus? And I played him one song, and we worked through the chorus, and he helped me to kind of unlock it a little bit. I was like really stuck in like a rhyme scheme that wasn't working. And he like was like, you're too stuck in this one scheme. Like, think about it a little bit differently. And it like totally unlocked the song for me. And then I remember these two specific moments that kind of changed how I felt about the songwriting. Was like, I was like, well, what do you think about the verse and the pre-chorus? And he said, I think if you let anyone change that verse or pre-chorus, I'll be fucking angry at you because it's perfect. And then I was like, do you want to hear another song? And he said, sure. So I played him this song, Doors I Painted Shut, that opens the record. And the song finished, and he just very slowly like this raised his arm into the frame, and all the hair was standing up on it. And I was like, okay, fuck, I can still write a song. Like if this guy says I can write a song, I can write a song. But we also were still kind of locked down. We weren't able to see each other safely. This is early pandemic. We're talking alpha variant kind of shit here. So we all quarantined, all tested, and then we rented a house to have like a bubble in. And we entered this like farmhouse that we rented in the middle of nowhere in Pennsylvania, and really got to work there. And that's where like I was like, okay, I wrote these things and I'm now confident that they're good. But the band saying, yeah, it's good and we want to build it is like that was like the next step to putting it all together.
Amazing. And did you find that once you got to that place that things flowed easily, or did you still struggle?
Yeah, flowed much easier for me. I mean, it's always a struggle to write as the Wonder Years, and that struggle is what makes a song a Wonder Years song and not a Dan Campbell song or a Matt Brash song. Is that like we're like, hey, I have this idea for a song, and then everyone, for lack of a better word, fights about it. Everyone's like, no, it's got to do this. No, it's got to do this. No, the rhythm has to be, no, we have to come in on the upbeat. No, we have to come in on the downbeat. No, it would be fucking stupid if we took that pause there. No, that pause is quintessential. We can't not take that pause there. What makes the Wonder Years song a Wonder Years song is the six of us and our own tastes and strengths and weaknesses coming to it and fighting over it until it becomes no longer my song or Matt's song or Nick's song, and it becomes our song.
Amazing. So tell me about some of the themes on this record. Are they different because of the times we've been through recently?
Yeah, it is. I mean, the overarching thing, the thing that I felt like I needed to write about was like, I was, after having my oldest son, my first son, I was lower mentally, emotionally than I had been in like a decade, which was a big surprise for me because I had always wanted to be a parent. And I thought that pretty unfairly and stupidly, I thought like, well, this will be it. This is going to be the period at the end of a paragraph about depression that I have lived through. And I will be able to start a new page. And like that, like obviously isn't true. And I think the realization for the record and where the title comes from is like, while like the hum of sadness inside of your brain can be quieter or louder at certain times, it will always be there. It doesn't go away. You know, it's an everyday thing, an everyday proposition to try to feel better and functional and happy, or, you know, some facsimile of happy. And so once I was at this, I realized at this low point and I started going back to therapy, and I was like, I need to kind of process this. And I process things through writing. And it was like, it was this, you know, it's an amalgam of things. It's like, it's postpartum depression, it's pandemic depression, it's existential crisis. It's looking out at a world that, you know, I mean, we're looking at the devastating effects of climate change. We're looking at floods and droughts and famines and hurricanes and fires. In America, we're looking at mass shootings. I mean, fuck, sometimes every day of the week. And so I'm especially as a new parent experiencing all of this like turmoil and pain over that. And like, and my like response to it is to like all but shut down. And I was like, I need to figure out why that is. I need to kind of like audit that, go back through my life and like figure out when I felt safest, when I felt most protected, when I felt the most afraid and alone, and just kind of like process all that shit. And I think that like the thing that the Wonder Years do, this is like where I feel like I am the luckiest, is that I get to take this personal pain and trauma that I have and then refashion it into something useful for others, right? I get to turn this like devastating thing like that I'm holding, I get to like melt it down and reshape it into a tool for other people to use against their pain. And I think that's the coolest thing about getting to do what we do.
Absolutely. And you mentioned going to therapy. Do you think the things you learn in therapy filter through into the songwriting, I assume?
I think that they do. I think like some of the stuff is like really practical stuff that like Melissa suggested some really like great simple things. Like, for instance, if you're someone like me and you are overwhelmed by consistent noise that you can't control. So like that could be like, for me, like it's like the exhaust vent on our oven when we're cooking, or an inconsolable crying infant. And I was like, what do I do? Like when the baby's like crying and won't stop. And I just like, my brain is just like a fucking fire alarm, just going off. It's like panic, it's fight or flight. Like, what the fuck? And she was like, and I'm expecting this like big, like kind of, I don't know, like cathartic sentence from her. Like some, and she goes, do you have noise canceling headphones? I was like, oh, fuck. Oh man, that's a good idea. So sometimes it went, really simple, but sometimes it was like auditing painful moments and trauma and working through that. So yeah, that the headphones don't come up so much on the record though.
So when you put a noise cancelling headphones, are you just going for the silence, or are you using music to calm your brain as well?
Usually it's a podcast. I'm just like, give me something, and like something that like is not important to like, I'll put on like a podcast about like the 76ers and be like, I'm going to listen to these guys talk about basketball. And if I'm paying attention, it's interesting to me. And if I'm not, it's just drowning out the uncontrollable noise.
You mentioned that after you got to that point, the song started to flow easier. You have the interband wrestling with each song, which obviously can be a struggle, but then ends up with something great. Is greater than the sum of its parts, kind of thing, I guess.
Yeah, it's the only way it can work.
Yeah. So were there any songs on the record that came super easy, and were there any songs on the record that you really struggled to finish?
Super easy versus struggled to finish. One of the fastest ones was Old Friends Like Lost Teeth. That was one where it just like Nick had a riff for like a verse and some chords for a chorus and like a feel. And I was like, holy shit, I already have a chorus written over these chords, but it doesn't have any other part of a song. So I didn't show it to you guys because I wanted to write like a verse for it. And so I was able to just plug in a chorus over that thing that Nick had already written and just write a verse. And then when we got to the bridge, like it was literally like a joke at first. Is like, we were like, as we kind of just will play. And then when we get to the end of what we do, everyone just kind of like does something to try to make everybody else laugh or whatever. And do you know that Ceremony? Do you listen to Ceremony?
Ceremony?
Yeah, the band Ceremony.
Oh, I don't really know them, I don't think.
Really cool band. Done a lot of things. I think it's on Violence, but there's a song where he just screams fuck like 5 times, but every time it's slower. It's just like these like downbeats where it's just like fuck, 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 fuck. And Kennedy basically did that with the drums. And then we were like, wait a minute, was that cool? We just fucking made it into a real part. Like we took the joke idea, made it into a real idea. And we're like, holy shit, that's so heavy. And a little bit of Ceremony influence on a Wonder Years record. Yeah, so that was one that came together really, really fast. And then also, if you're gonna listen to Ceremony, like every record is pretty different. I think that's on Violence. Anyway, some other ones like, Cardinals 2, we had been working on since Sister City, since our last record. Like a piece of that is from a whole album cycle writing session ago. Laura and the Beehive, even though it's really stripped back, took me a very long time to find a chorus for. And we ended up having to change the verse to make a chorus happen. What else was kind of a tough one to... Well, you know what? If it's not coming to me right away, then maybe it's not important to say.
What were you listening to through the pandemic? Like, you had plenty of time to listen to music. Were you going back to your comfort music, or were you discovering new bands? What were you doing?
I don't really like to listen to a lot of music when I write, because I don't want to let it like unconsciously affect what I'm writing. But before I was writing, I was listening to a lot of John Moreland, a lot of Phoebe Bridgers, a lot of Christian Lee Hudson.
Nice.
And then, comfort stuff for me is the Mountain Goats, the Hold Steady, Rilo Kiley, and so like all of that.
These are all bands where the lyrics make a massive difference to the song.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
so
yeah.
Is that part of why you think you listen to them? Because the lyrics, you find it
intriguing?
Yeah,
that's like 85% about what I give a shit about in music. And it's why I think like some of the other members of the band and I are such good complements to each other. like Nick and I have been writing songs together since we were 17, and I'm 36. So we're coming up on 20 years. And like the reason we compliment each other is like Nick could not give less of a shit about what the lyrics are. Just like as long as they are like baseline, not embarrassing, he's good. Whereas for me, that is the purpose of a song. Like to me, like the art form as I see it is a way to take a narrative and it's okay. So if you're just gonna, it's like you have the brevity of like poetry, right? Like where there's like you have a much smaller space to convey a narrative than you do over the course of like a novel, right? But the difference is, well, they're twofold. One is I get to dictate how it is read to you because I get to choose how to sing it. And two, almost like scoring a movie, we get to dictate the mood of the music behind it. And so like to me, it is like the most powerful way to tell a story, if done correctly, is through a song. And like there are not a lot of better storytellers than some of those people I just referenced, right? Like I don't know if you can find me a better storyteller in music than Craig Finn. I just don't know. Some people might say Bruce Springsteen, and I say, I'm gonna go Craig. Just like I love Bruce, but like I don't think there's anyone as good as Craig Finn and John Darnielle right up there. Jenny Lewis, Phoebe Bridgers, like Lucy Dacus, really incredible storytellers through music. That's the kind of shit that I kind of show up for. That's what I want out of my music.
What music did you grow up with? What kind of brought you to a place where you took music as a passion?
Okay, my first favorite things were all pop R&B stuff. Boys to Men, you know, we're from Philly, that kind of thing. Mariah Carey. Like I was like, I'm really interested in like the vocalization, the melody, the hook was really like the first thing that drew me in. My dad was 21 when he had me. And so like being in your 20s in like the late 80s, early 90s, mid 90s, and you know, it's like what we were listening to in the car was Nirvana, Radiohead, Weezer, Rage Against the Machine, Tribe Called Quest. Like that was like kind of his shit. And so like that was rubbing off on me, but it didn't, you know, didn't feel so much like mine as much as it did like, hey, that's my dad's music that I like. And so when I went to my first like hardcore shows, like and saw like local bands playing, and like the energy was so palpable, and I was already interested in like, you know, from Blink, it went from Blink to MXPX, and from MXPX to the Get Up Kids, and from the Get Up Kids to the Anniversary. And it's like I already kind of had that stuff, which spoke to me melodically and sometimes lyrically, depending upon which of those artists. And then the energy of hardcore was like the thing that like kind of completed it for me. And then like from some of those bands I mentioned, I had started getting into like the Saddle Creek stuff. And some of my first like earliest like lyrical like heroes were, you know, all of Connor's stuff through Desa and through Bright Eyes, you know, all of Jenny Lewis's stuff through Aloe Kylie at the time. Like that was, so like, I think that like, I am kind of like and it kind of makes sense when you think about the Wonder Years. It's like, okay, it's the pop sensibility of like pop music. Like it's the melody of pop music with the urgency and energy of like punk and hardcore with the lyricism of like a, you know, these like introspective storytellers.
Okay, so you didn't earlier on. You didn't want to shout about what you're best at, but I think you just listed a few things of some of the things that you're really.
No, those are what other people I like are the best at, and I try to enter the arena.
Okay, well, I'm going to say that you guys are like high up on the list with a few of those things, and the way you bring all those together is the Wonder Years, and obviously, you know, there's plenty of bands out there that are doing, you know, stuff within your genre, but you always recognize a Wonder Years song in amongst, like if you put on a playlist and a Wonder Years song comes on, you know it's the Wonder Years straight away.
Yeah, I think that we are singular in that way, and some of it is just like some of our proclivities, right? Like we don't like pop production, like glossy production is just never really fit what we do. And that's a complaint for some people, but like I want it to sound like you are standing in the room experiencing us playing our fucking asses off. I want you to feel it when we play. And I don't think that you can get that from like a really glossy production. Like, I want you to hear that Michael like smashed his knuckle on his snare rim and is bleeding all over his drum kit. Like, I want you to hear that my throat is like tearing itself to pieces. Like, that's what I want you to hear how many fucking strings we broke recording it. And it's like, that's kind of, I think that sets us apart in a way too. Like, even before I start singing, like, you can kind of hear if we're on a playlist with somebody else, like the production is just different.
The album's going to drop end of September. And then what comes after that?
Album comes out end of September. We have a bunch of festivals coming up, and then we're going to do a short kind of tour in the US with a band called Fireworks that are like, I think, the best band that the genre has ever produced, and also some of our best friends. And really excited. They're coming out of retirement. They're going to put out a new record soon, and this is going to be their first tour in 7 years. And Max Seal is on it as well. It's an awesome band from Long Island. Then we're going to go take it to the UK. We have like 9 headliners over there. And we're doing a bunch of, like I said, a bunch of festivals. We're on Riot Fest, Is for Lovers, When We Were Young. And then we're going to take the last bit of the year off. Like, we went from like an 8-week full US into, I did 2 tours with my other band, Aaron West and the Roaring 20s. We did some festivals. We've been doing this record rollout, shooting all these music videos, doing all these festivals. We're going to do those 2 headliners, and then we're going to fucking rest.
Last question. You know, you have this discography that you've built up over the years, but there's still people out there that don't know your band. If you were sat next to somebody on the plane and you got talking about what you do, and this person wanted to hear a song, what song would you play them first?
What song could I play? Can I play them stuff from the new record that's not out yet?
You can play them whatever you like.
I mean, the song that I am proudest to have written is the last song on the new record. It's called You're the Reason I Don't Want the World to End. That's my favorite. I mean, like, I think like the obvious answer is like, the song we'll be remembered for writing is Came Out Swinging. But like, to me, the proudest I am of any art that we've made together is that song.
And it's the last song on the album. Why is it the last song on the album?
You know what? I think what I'll do there is just say, go ahead and listen to anyone watching, and you're going to understand why it's the last song on the record.
Okay. And are you, like a lot of people these days, they're listening to just like playlists, or they're listening, even with the album, they might put it on shuffle. Mm-hmm. How important is the sequencing for you? Is it still important? It sounds like it is.
It's super important. I mean, we make albums. That's the thing that we do. We don't make groups of songs. We don't really, for a lot of reasons, like I feel like we are dinosaurs in a lot of ways. Like we sell more vinyl than like any other band on Hopeless. We like are more concerned about the live show than we are about like whatever playlist or social media things. Like we exist in physical forms, and we make albums that are albums that are meant to be listened to as albums. And I think that like, this is a really great, if you listen to Hum, it's going to explain to you why. It is sequenced specifically to be an enjoyable listening experience from front to back that ebbs and flows and gets intense and pulls back and tells a story all the way through for 12 songs.
I feel like I just need to cap it there, because that's a great conclusion to the interview. So thank you very much for joining me and having a chat. I'm really looking forward to seeing you guys in a room again, because it's always just incredible. And I'm glad you're still doing it.
So am I. Thank you very much for having me.